This place isn't for people like you. That's what my mother told me, 3 days before Thanksgiving. Not because I'd done something wrong, not because I hurt anyone, but because I worked with my hands. Because I came home smelling like jet fuel and motor grease instead of perfume and Pinot Noir. My little sister was bringing her new boyfriend home, a guy in finance, Princeton-educated, family money, and cufflinks. And apparently a woman who fixes airplanes for a living just didn't fit the aesthetic. They didn't ask if I had plans. They didn't care that I'd already baked the pie, bought gifts, rearranged my schedule just to show up on time. All they said was, "Claire wants everything to go perfectly, you understand, right?" I did. And 5 days later, when they showed up at my door, panicked, guilty, and desperate, the only thing I had left to give them was the truth they never bothered to ask for. 3 days before Thanksgiving, my phone lit up with a call from Mom. I had just finished replacing a hydraulic valve on a C-130 at the hangar. My hands were still stained, knuckles scraped, hair tied up in a messy bun I hadn't retouched since 5 a.m. I wiped my palm on a towel and picked up, expecting the usual: what pie I was bringing, how early I'd be home, or if I could fix the garbage disposal again. But that wasn't the call I got. Her voice was sweet at first, almost too sweet. "Emma, honey," she said, drawing out the words like I was a fragile glass that might shatter. "So, Claire's hosting Thanksgiving this year at her new place in Westbury." I smiled genuinely. "That's great. Want me to bring the bourbon pecan again?" She hesitated. And just like that, I knew. "Claire's boyfriend Nathan is flying in from New York," she continued. "He's quite successful. Finance, suits, the whole deal. His family's a bit particular." I didn't say a word. I let her fill the silence. "We just think, Claire thinks, it might be best if this year you sit it out." The phrase "sit it out" hit harder than any wrench I'd ever dropped on my foot. "You mean not come?" Her voice cracked just slightly. "You understand, right? With your job and all. The timing, the setting." I wanted to say something. That I'd already bought her a cashmere scarf from that boutique in Sandusky she loves. That I'd saved up to get Dad a signed baseball card from his high school hero. That I'd rearranged 3 double shifts just to make it on time. That I missed sitting next to him while he carved the turkey too thick, or watching Claire act like her cranberry sauce wasn't from a can. But all I said was, "Yeah, I understand." She sighed in relief, like dodging guilt was the real Thanksgiving tradition. After we hung up, I stood alone in the break room, the hum of vending machines the only sound. I stared at my reflection in the microwave's black glass. There I was, oil-stained coveralls, steel-toed boots, a face tired from 12 years of work most people never noticed. And in that moment, I wasn't angry. I was hollow. That night, I placed the 2 wrapped gifts on my kitchen counter and just sat. The house was quiet, not peaceful quiet, emptied quiet. The kind where you hear every floorboard creak and every radiator groan like it's trying to speak up for you. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise out of habit. I brewed coffee, didn't drink it, just watched the steam curl upward like a question that wouldn't get an answer. By noon, I had made my decision. If they didn't think I belonged at their table, fine, I'd build my own. I put on my jacket, packed my tools, and drove east, toward something I didn't have a name for yet. Maybe peace, maybe clarity, maybe just space from the people who thought grease under my nails made me less of a daughter. But in my bones, I knew one thing. This year, the only seat I'd take would be the one I carved out for myself. Thanksgiving morning arrived with that muted kind of stillness only fresh snow can bring. No cars, no dogs barking, no kids screaming about whose turn it was on the Xbox. Just white rooftops, breath in the air, and the quiet hum of the old radiator in my kitchen. Usually by now, I'd be elbow deep in sweet potatoes and green beans, calling Mom to double-check her stuffing recipe even though I knew it by heart. Dad would already be watching the pregame, claiming he didn't care who won but yelling at the TV anyway. Claire? She'd be gliding in with some expensive wine she'd just happened to pick up from Napa. But this year, just me. I sat in my flannel pajamas at the kitchen table, staring at the pie I had baked the night before. Bourbon pecan, Grandma's recipe. I made it even after the call, out of habit maybe. Or maybe because some part of me thought Mom would change her mind, call back, say she was wrong. She didn't. The pie sat untouched, covered in foil. I didn't have the heart to cut it. At 9 a.m., I scrambled a couple eggs, threw toast in the pan, and forced myself to eat. The silence was thicker than gravy. No football, no laughter, no sarcastic jabs from Dad, no bad wine from Claire, just me and the hum of a kitchen that wasn't full. I was about to take a nap and write the day off completely when I remembered the voicemail. 2 days ago, Mrs. Keller, my old high school English teacher, had called. Said her garage door opener was busted again. left a shaky little message. "If you have time after the holiday, dear." I hadn't responded. But suddenly the idea of fixing something, anything, felt more grounding than sitting here watching the pie go stale. So I packed up my tools, threw on my winter jacket, and headed across town. Mrs. Keller's place was a small brick house tucked at the end of a cul-de-sac, where the wind always felt colder and the mailboxes leaned from years of Ohio winters. She answered in a sweater too big for her frame, cheeks rosy, eyes lighting up like she wasn't surprised but relieved. "You're working on Thanksgiving?" she asked, her voice soft. I gave her a small shrug. "Better than staring at a pie I'm not going to eat." She didn't ask questions, just said, "Coffee's on the table," and led me inside. The garage door fix took 30 minutes, but I stayed an extra hour, changed a light bulb in her hallway, reprogrammed the thermostat, sat with her while she told stories about her late husband carving turkey like it was an Olympic sport. Before I left, she pressed a warm, foil-wrapped slice of pumpkin pie into my hand. "In case you forget," she said, eyes twinkling, "what home still tastes like." On the way back, I passed by my parents' house. Every light was on. Through the window, I could see silhouettes, wine glasses, laughter, the kind of warm chaos I used to think was mine. But I didn't stop. I didn't need to. Back at my place, I set Mrs. Keller's pie next to the untouched bourbon pecan. And for the first time that day, I smiled. One was made from memory, the other was made from kindness. I cut into hers first. And just like that, Thanksgiving found me anyway. People see a woman in oil-stained coveralls and assume that's all there is. They don't see the early mornings, the busted knuckles, the decades of choosing purpose over polish. But then again, they never really looked. Growing up in the Rollins household meant being clean, quiet, and coordinated. Mom ran the place like a magazine spread, napkins folded just right, lemonade in mason jars with Lehman wheels and matching straws. Dad wasn't flashy, but he liked things proper. Neighbors who trimmed their hedges, kids who went to college, daughters who looked good on paper. Claire fit right in. She was the golden child, homecoming queen, dance captain, the kind of girl who could cry without her mascara running. She went to university in Boston for communications, dated boys who wore ties, and posted selfies with motivational quotes. Everything about her sparkled. Me? I was grease before I ever touched a wrench. I laughed too loud. I argued when I should have smiled. While Claire posed for prom pictures, I was under my first pickup truck, flashlight between my teeth, changing brake pads like my life depended on it, and in a way it did. When I told Mom I wanted to skip traditional college and go to aviation trade school, she blinked like I'd just confessed to a felony. "Emma, you're too smart for that," she said. "Why not something more respectable?" That word, respectable, it stuck to me like smoke in my clothes. Every holiday, every get-together, it was there. I was the one with dirt under her nails while Claire talked about brand partnerships and podcast interviews. Dad never said it outright, but he never asked questions about my work either. Just nodded when I mentioned the hangar, or muttered something about job safety. No one came to see the first jet I helped rebuild. No one noticed when I got promoted to crew lead, but they all forwarded Claire's latest YouTube interview like it was national news. I tried not to let it get to me, I really did. I sent flowers every Mother's Day. I fixed their leaking sink, tuned up Dad's truck, paid off Claire's credit card debt that year she maxed it out after quitting her job. No thanks, no receipts, just silence, like my love came with a mute button. And still I kept giving, because that's what I thought family meant. Until one day, I stopped waiting for applause and started building something of my own. It started small, a podcast episode on my commute about compound interest, then a book, then 5 more. I opened my first Roth IRA at 25, put $500 in a Vanguard index fund and skipped new boots that winter to add $200 more. By 27, I was investing half my paycheck. By 29, I bought my fixer-upper house, peeling paint, cracked pipes, no insulation, but it was mine. I renovated it on weekends, one busted pipe and rusted hinge at a time. Every dollar I saved on contractors went back into my portfolio. No one knew, not even Jada, my best friend. And that wasn't shame, it was strategy. Because I knew the second they saw the number, my net worth, the returns, the assets, they'd stop seeing me. They'd rewrite my story to fit their narrative, make it about luck or hustle or money. Not the late nights, the solo YouTube classes on tax strategies, the hours spent researching dividend growth stocks between engine calibrations. As of last fall, my accounts crossed $1.2 million. No trust fund, no husband, no shortcuts, just compound interest, secondhand tools, and a whole lot of faith. They never saw it coming, and maybe that's the sweetest part of it all. They never saw what I was building because they never bothered to look past the grease. It was 5 days after Thanksgiving. The bourbon pecan pie was still in my fridge, untouched. I'd thought about tossing it, but something about it felt sacred now, like a silent witness to the part of me they never invited. The air outside had that brittle December bite. I was under the belly of a 737 auxiliary truck, halfway through replacing a fuel pressure sensor, when I heard tires crunching over snow in the driveway. I wiped my hands on a rag and stepped outside, heart already knowing before my eyes confirmed it. There, standing in the cold like a scene out of a guilt-stained postcard, were Mom, Dad, and Claire. Claire was in a beige peacoat, lips pressed so tight they were nearly white. Dad looked uncomfortable, like his shoes were too tight. Mom? She was holding a tin of cranberry muffins. Her signature, "I don't know how to say I'm sorry, so here's starch and sugar" move. "Emma," Mom called out, voice falsely bright. "We were just in the neighborhood." I leaned against the garage door frame, arms crossed. "Uh-huh. Neighborhood's a solid 45 minutes from your side of town." They stood there awkwardly. Claire was the first to crack. "You should have told me," she snapped. I blinked. "Told you what?" "That Nathan used to work for you." My heart dropped, then rose again. "Oh, that's why they were here." Claire kept going, fast and defensive. "He told me everything. How you gave him a shot at the shop, how you trained him, how you kept him from getting fired when he stripped a gear shaft. He said you basically saved his career." I didn't move. "And then," she added, her voice rising, "he told us about your investments, about how you taught him the difference between gambling and actual financial strategy, about your spreadsheets, about the $1 million portfolio." Silence wrapped around us like smoke. I let it stretch, let it sting. Then I said, calm as ever, "Yeah, I didn't tell you." Mom stepped forward, eyes searching mine. "We had no idea, sweetheart, truly." "Would it have mattered if you did?" I asked, my voice steady. "Would I have been welcome if Nathan hadn't said something?" No answer, just the sound of Claire's boots grinding into the ice. "It's not about the money," Dad offered. I laughed, a low, tired sound, "Isn't it?" Claire's cheeks flushed. "You made me look stupid in front of him." That hit harder than it should have, but I didn't flinch. "I didn't make you do anything," I replied. "You chose to be ashamed of me before you even knew me." Mom shifted the tin in her hands, eyes dropping. "We wanted to apologize and talk. Nathan's starting something, auto parts distribution. He thought maybe you two could reconnect, maybe build something together, with your experience and, well, there it is," I cut in, "the pitch." "It's a good opportunity," Claire said tightly. "You should understand that." "Oh, I do," I said, stepping back into the garage. "That's why I built what I built, without you." I didn't slam the door behind me. I just let it close. And the sound of that latch? It was the first peace I'd felt in years. That night I couldn't sleep. Not from anger, not even sadness, really. Just a strange sort of weight pressing into my ribs, a mix of exhaustion and clarity. Their faces kept looping in my head, the way Mom smiled like everything could be patched with muffins, the way Dad wouldn't meet my eyes, the way Claire stood there more embarrassed about what Nathan knew than what she had done. I sat at the kitchen table long after midnight, the tin of cranberry muffins still sealed, untouched. Like the scarf I'd bought Mom still sitting in its white tissue paper bag, like so much of me had always been, present but never received. At 10:07 the next morning, my phone buzzed. Claire. I nearly let it ring out, but something in me was curious. If not for her, then for the part of me that still wanted to hear why. I answered. She started soft. "Hey, yesterday was a mess." "Yep," I said flatly. "I want to start over," she said. "Nathan and I talked. He thinks the business could work, with you on board." "With my money," I corrected. "With your experience," she said quickly. "And yes, the capital helps too. But he respects you, Emma. He really does. He said you were the only reason he didn't burn out of the industry completely." I didn't respond. I just let her fill the silence. "I know we've never been close," she went on, "but maybe this is a chance. To rebuild something. To be sisters." That word, sisters. She only used it when she needed something. I stood by the window, watching frost collect on the edges of my truck windshield. I thought about every year I sat at the kids' table, even into my 20s. About the job offers no one asked about. The silence after I fixed their dryer. The unspoken message that I was almost enough, but never quite. And now suddenly I was worth a call. "Claire," I said, slow and careful, "do you even know what I do each day?" She paused. "You fix planes." I smiled, not unkindly. "I diagnose electronic systems on aircraft worth more than your condo. I manage a maintenance crew of 8. I handle FAA inspections. I recalibrate fuel mapping systems and write safety reports that affect whether hundreds of people get home alive." Silence. "I've built something," I added. "Not just money, a business, a life, a home. I've done it without applause and definitely without permission." She whispered, "I know, that's why this matters." Let me ask you something, I said. If I had said yes to Thanksgiving before you found out about Nathan, before the numbers, would I have been welcome? There was no delay. No, she said. I was embarrassed. I nodded to myself. And now? No answer. Let me be clear, I continued, voice sharper now. I'm not interested in buying my way into this family. If you want to build something real with me, it won't start with a business deal. It'll start with an apology without an agenda. She sighed, frustrated. Don't throw away an opportunity because of pride. This isn't pride, I said. It's boundaries. Then I ended the call. I stood there for a long time listening to the house creak around me. Not angry, not cold, just finished. The girl who once begged for a seat at the table was gone. And the woman who built her own? She had nothing left to prove. 2 days after that call with Claire, I heard it again. That slow, heavy crunch of tires on snow outside my window. I didn't have to look, I already knew. I wiped my hands with a shop towel, still smelling faintly of motor oil and copper grease, and opened the front door. There they were. Mom in her signature red wool coat, makeup done like she was going on a holiday card. Dad beside her, hands shoved deep into his pockets, shifting his weight from foot to foot like a man who didn't want to be where he was. I didn't say anything. Hi, sweetheart, Mom began softly. Can we come in? I stepped aside. Not because I was ready, but because I was ready to finish it. We sat in the living room, same sagging couch, same lamp with the crooked shade. The scarf I had bought her, still in its untouched gift bag, rested on the table between us like a truth no one wanted to open. Mom noticed it but didn't say a word. I want to start over, she said, hands clutched in her lap. We made a mistake, Emma, a big one. I nodded. Yeah, you did. Dad cleared his throat, that classic Rollins move when emotion got too close. We were wrong to exclude you. We didn't mean to hurt you. I met his eyes, calm. You told me Thanksgiving wasn't for people like me. You just didn't expect I'd push back. They looked down, shame settling into the room like dust in the corners. I'm not here to fight, I said. I'm not here to argue or explain myself anymore. Mom looked up quickly. We're not here for money, I swear. Then why now, I asked. Why only after you found out what I've built? Neither answered. If Nathan hadn't said anything, I pressed, would you be here? The silence said enough. I leaned forward, elbows on knees. I'm not ashamed of my work, never have been. The only thing I regret is letting your silence shrink me for so long. Mom's eyes glistened. We were trying to protect Claire's moment. We didn't mean to erase yours. But you did, I said, voice even. And I've spent years giving, forgiving, and waiting to be enough for you. I looked at both of them, really looked. This is where that ends. Mom's breath caught. I'm not cutting you off, I continued. But I'm done begging to belong. I'm done performing for a place at your table. Dad looked older in that moment. Not from age, but from truth. Heavy truth. The kind that doesn't leave when the visit ends. So what happens now, he asked. I stood, walked to the front door, and opened it slowly. What happens now, I said, holding the door gently, is that you decide whether you can love me for who I am, not who you wish I'd been. But you do it from the other side of this door. Mom stood, her lips parting like she wanted to say something, but no words came. I didn't rush to fill the silence. For once I let it speak. And after a long, long moment, they stepped outside. I closed the door behind them, not with anger, but with clarity and peace. It's been almost a year since I closed that door. Since then, I've received a handful of texts from Mom, holiday greetings, a birthday message with just a signature, no calls, no muffins, no let's talk, and honestly, that was fine. Claire called once, a month later, said Nathan left the startup, something about a disagreement with the board. She sounded tired, unsure. I listened. I told her I hoped she found her footing. I meant it, but I didn't invite her back in. Not because I was angry, because I was free. In the months that followed, something unexpected happened. People started showing up, but not the ones I used to chase. Not the ones who needed me to shrink to fit. These were new people, real ones. Like Jasmine, a young woman from my old aviation trade school, who reached out on LinkedIn asking how I got started with investing. Or the community center downtown that invited me to speak at a financial literacy night for women in skilled trades. The first time I stood behind that podium, hands still rough from a 12-hour shift, I realized I finally had something worth sharing. Not my net worth. My worth. The kind that isn't measured in applause or invitations, but in impact. I said yes more often, not because I needed validation, but because I no longer had to prove anything. I started mentoring girls in mechanical certification programs, showed them my spreadsheets, taught them about compound interest and Roth IRAs between torque specs and hydraulic pressure charts. One afternoon, after volunteering at the community garage, I found a note under my windshield wiper. Scrawled in messy blue ink, it read, Thanks for showing me that worth isn't something you prove, it's something you carry. I sat in my truck a long time holding that note. Later that evening, I stood in my backyard, the one I fixed up myself, watching the apple trees I planted last spring begin to bud. Small, stubborn, and growing on their own terms. Just like me. Then came the familiar crunch of tires. It was Jada, my best friend since high school. She stepped out of her beat-up Jeep with 2 coffees and a box of gas station donuts like she did every Friday. "You working again?" she teased. "Always," I grinned, brushing sawdust off my hoodie. We sat on the porch as the sun dipped low behind the rooftops. Orange light spilled across the backyard. I sipped my coffee, felt the wood beneath me, solid and real. Jada looked over. "You ever think about going back?" I didn't need to ask what she meant. "No," I said. "Not unless they see me without the $1,000,000 first." She nodded. "They probably won't." I know. I looked at her, this person who never once made me feel like I had to be less to be loved, who saw me in steel-toed boots and engine grease and thought, "That's strength, not that's failure." "You know what?" I said, smiling. "I finally feel like I'm not trying to fix the wrong engine anymore." Jada laughed, tossed a donut hole at me. That's the most mechanic way I've ever heard someone say, "I found peace." She wasn't wrong, because for the first time, I wasn't fixing them anymore. I was building me, not the version they wanted, but the one who sleeps easy, the one who chooses integrity over invitation, the one who knows I was never a loser. And this time, no one needs to tell me otherwise. Sometimes the deepest kind of healing doesn't come from being invited back. It comes from realizing you don't need the invitation in the first place. Emma didn't slam the door out of anger. She closed it out of clarity. Because being excluded taught her something that years of silence never could. That you don't need to change who you are to earn love. You just need to stop shrinking to fit places that were never built for you. And maybe that's the most powerful kind of revenge. Not screaming, not proving, but building a life so solid, so honest, so you, that no one gets to define your worth again. If this story moved you, if you've ever been the outsider at someone else's table, know this: you are not alone, and you are not a failure. And if you believe in stories of resilience, self-worth, and second chances, subscribe to Sweet Revenge, Happy Ending. We tell true stories for people who've been underestimated and chose to rise anyway. We'll see you in the next one.